Alrighty, so with the current about to come down in the inaugural Leeds Cup tournament, with tomorrow's last two game of the Leeds Cup tournament in the third place game, and then the final between Nashville SC and Inter Miami. And it's a good time to remind everybody that MLS is back. In fact, MLS is back sooner than you think it is. It's going to be right after the day when the Leeds Cup final and the third place match is going to happen with 11 games that's going to be happening on Sunday night. And just to make sure that you are really happy the fact that MLS is back in the regular season resumed, it seems like we're going to have a mini Heineken rivalry week with the way that there are some big rivalry that has happened with the league resuming for the first time since July. And the first one is Columbus versus FC Cincinnati, because why not have a Hell is Rio derby right at when the Leeds Cup tournament is over, as this one is a 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific, and you know this is going to be national televised, and it's going to be on FS1. Now Columbus 10-6-7, while Cincinnati 15-6-2, and they're still leading the Supporters Shield by a lot. I mean, they look like they could be a team that could run away the Supporters Shield standings. But that being said, all-time meeting, Columbus does still have the advantage, 5-4-3 over FC Cincinnati, despite the fact that Cincinnati did get their third win against Columbus in the Hell is Real Derby earlier this season. And in terms of the last game played, now this is kind of interesting that I want to talk about because, for some of these teams, it's been a long time since they've last played a competitive game. And this is kind of one of the criticism I think you would say about this Leeds Cup tournament of the fact that, well, as much as this is a month-long tournament, there's literally going to be some teams that's going to play two games, and once they get eliminated in the group stage, they're going to have a very long layoff. And I would be surprised that when we see some of these games, especially some of these games are going to be featuring teams that got eliminated in the group stage facing off against each other. Don't expect it's going to be a competitive game, that there's going to be some craziness that is going to happen. I mean, still could be, because this is MLS after all. Chaos basically reign in terms of this league, especially some of these later games. But if you expect there's going to be some goal barrage that we see from this week, don't expect that is the case. I think when we saw in the first week of the season, the goals scoring was definitely down in terms of that, and that again, most of these teams are just trying to get back to fitness, and it's not easy for some of these teams that have not played game as long as 3 weeks for some of these teams, and them jumping right back into the regular season, and at a crucial time too, with the fact that for most of these teams, there's only like 12 games or 11 games left in their season. Now, in terms of the last game that was played for Columbus, August 4th was the last time, and they lost 4-3 in the PK shootout to Minnesota. Well, for Cincinnati, they also lost on a PK shootout. It was also the same night that they lost in the PK shootout, this time to your eventual one of the finalists in the Leeds Cup in Nashville SC. So, both of these teams has had a fair amount of layoff. It's been 16 days since that them both losing in a PK shootout. And again, it's gonna be interesting to see how it is. I mean, I expect it should still be competitive. Again, both of these team are really good team, and especially I think this could be also a highly scoring game like what I thought in the first Hell is Real Derby, because these two teams have really good attack, and also maybe this could be the highly excited debut of Diego Rossi coming back to MLS and playing for the Columbus Crew. So yeah, there's a lot at stake in terms of this game, and that yeah, I expect this should be a very fun Hell is Real Derby, as we have seen earlier this season. Then we move on to the Atlantic Cup between the New York Red Bulls versus DC United. So this game, of course, starts at the same time. This is one of four games that start at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific. The Red Bulls 6-8-9, while DC 8-6-10, and just above the red line in ninth place right now. All-time meeting 44-19-38 in favor of DC. And in terms of last game play, for the Red Bulls, it was on August 8th when they lose 4-3 in a PK shootout to the Philadelphia Union, because of course it's almost like it's given whenever it's in a knockout round, the team that they're probably going to get eliminated is the Philadelphia Union. Whereas for DC, they lost 5-4 in a PK shootout, also to the Philadelphia Union on August 3rd. So both of these teams kind of fell victim to the Philadelphia Union in the knockout round, and that I will say that there are going to be some teams that they're going to have some slight advantage with the way that they haven't played they haven't played the last game as long as some of these teams that has just incredible amount of rest, like what we see with DC haven't played in 17 days, and that also could factor in terms of how the game will look. But yeah, should be an interesting one. I also expect that this could be a low scoring game because that's the case with Red Bulls game. Anytime when there's a Red Bulls game, you don't expect there's going to be some high scoring of affair, and especially in the Atlantic Cup. I think the last couple of meetings have been relatively low scoring. Then we go to the other New York team, NYCFC. They're going to be playing against Minnesota. So NYCFC 5-11-8, while Minnesota is 7-7-8. I think this is one of only two matchup that is an interconference matchup. I think the other one is Seattle versus Atlanta United, which I'll get to in a bit. But coming into this game, all-time meeting as this is an interconference matchup. That basically means that they don't meet each other very often. This is only the fifth meeting with NYCFC having the slight edge 2-1-1 over Minnesota. Now, the last game play for NYCFC, again, it's been a while for them, 17 days since the last game, and it was not one that they want to remember. They lost to the Red Bulls in the New York Derby in the round of 32, and the same goes for Minnesota. I mean, again, if you want to talk about advantage in terms of teams that has the advantage in terms of not having too much rust, Minnesota is going to have that advantage because it's only been 9 days since they lost to Nashville 5-0 in that one. But overall, I think both of these teams want to have that bad taste of their mouth in terms of how they got eliminated in the Leeds Cup over. Though again, this game, by the way, is going to be taking place at Citi Field, and again, as much as I know Minnesota has been a really good road team this season, yeah, it's going to be a challenge whenever you see a road team play against NYCFC, especially in a baseball configuration. And I wonder how they will look in terms of playing on a shortened field. I mean, they play some really great soccer, especially on the attacking end in the Leagues Cup. I don't know if that's going to work out the same when they play on that short turf at Citi Field in this one against NYCFC. Though you could say that this is a big game for Minnesota too, with the way that they are currently below the red line. This is definitely a winnable road game. NYCFC has not been an NYCFC team that we've seen in the past, but also it's also going to be interesting to see whether if NYCFC can make a push too, especially with some of the signings that they made this summer transfer window. So yeah, should be an interesting match to see. But moving on in the next one is none other than the Canadian Classique. So Toronto and Montreal will be facing against each other. I think this is the last time they face against each other because I think they've already faced like twice so far. Toronto 3-10-11, easily one of the worst record in MLS. I think only Miami has the worst record in the Eastern Conference, but we know that's about to change. Whereas for Montreal, 9-2-13, they're just below the red line right now in 10th place, just like Minnesota. And in terms of the all-time meeting in the Canadian Classic, it is very close. 21 wins apiece for both of these teams. There's only been 8 draws in the Canadian Classic. Now for Toronto and Montreal, both of these teams, you talk about teams that have had a long break. Both of these teams has had a long break to restart the season. For Toronto, it's been almost 3 weeks since they last played a game, or actually not even 3 weeks. Well, yeah, around that part where they lost 1-0 to Atlas to get themselves eliminated. And for Montreal, they actually have the longest lay off out of any team in MLS right now. July 26th is the last time that they play a game. They have gone pretty much 24 days since they last play a game. Yeah, they've gone 3.5 weeks since they lost 1-0 to DC United at home. So yeah, this should be interesting to see again how both of the match fitness is going to be for both of these teams. But it is the Canadian Classic, and we have seen some great Canadian Classic before, and that I'm pretty sure this is a game that as much as I know TFC has not much to play for, they want nothing more to spoil Montreal chances of making the playoffs. Similar to how a couple of years ago it was kind of the reverse, where Toronto was fighting for playoffs, Montreal was kind of out of it, and Montreal did the spoiler over TFC in terms of not making the playoffs. Because as the old saying goes, if you can't make the playoffs, then maybe try to force the other team to not make the playoffs. And if they can't go, then they can't. Or if you can't go, they can't go to the playoffs as well. Then we move on to the Chicago Fire versus Orlando City, as this is one of two games that's going to start at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Pacific. So, one of the thing again, with these games, a lot of overlap. Though I will say that there are a lot of West Coast games in terms of this 11 game match week to return to MLS play. But in this one, between the Fire and Orlando City, the Fire 8-8-7, while Orlando 10-7-6. And in terms of the all-time meetings, 7-6-6 in favor of the Chicago Fire. Now for the Fire, it's been 16 days since they lost 1-0 to Club America in a game that, they have no shame of losing that one, because I thought in that game they really give Club America all they can handle, and if it wasn't for an own goal, they could have maybe headed to a PK shootout and had a chance to create a big upset. Whereas for Orlando City, yeah, I'm pretty sure they're desperate to try to get themselves back to play. I mean, after becoming one of the latest victim of Inter Miami run to the final. In fact, they were the first victim in the knockout round, and they also have had a long layover, 18 days since they last played a competitive game. Again, this is another game where it's between both teams that has not played up had a game for a while, and it should be interesting to see how it is. Although, for the Chicago Fire, obviously, this final stretch, this is going to be probably the most important final stretch that they had in the past couple of years, because we've seen before where they get into this position where look like maybe they have enough to make it to the playoffs, and they just crumble by the time September has come. And I think this will tell a lot of Frank Coppola's team, and whether if this are they going to follow the usual narrative when what Fire fans accompany with them collapsing and eventually just miss out on the playoffs, or is this finally the year for the first time since 2017 that they're actually going to make it to the playoffs? Whereas for Orlando City, again, fighting the inconsistency. I mean, they kind of shown that doing the Leeds Cup tournament too. They got some big wins in that Leeds Cup tournament, including getting a big win against the likes of Santa Laguna, and then they basically flame out in the game against Inter Miami. Then we go to the next one, which is the Houston Dynamo versus the Portland Timbers. So you talk about team that cannot wait until league plays begin, because they not only did not perform well in the Leagues Cup, but kind of got eliminated in an embarrassing fashion. I think the Houston Dynamo basically fall into that category. In fact, I think both of these teams kind of had contrasted reason of why they want to get back to league play. I mean, for Houston, it's pretty obvious that they want to get back to league play after just probably have one of the biggest choke job we have seen in the Leeds Cup tournament this uh, this time. But coming into this game, 8-5-10, whereas the Timbers 6-8-9. And in terms of the all-time meeting, the Timbers had the better of Houston. 10-8-6 is the record, and the last game that is played. The reason why I say the Dynamo really wants to get themselves back to league playing back to competitive game is because it's been 13 days since they have to painfully swallow a 2-1 loss to Charlotte in a game where, yeah, I mean, it was just an implosion. We one of the biggest implosion we have seen in the Leeds Cup. I mean, I think this was also fresh off of the implosion that Dallas had, and Houston basically said, "Yeah, we're gonna basically one up that and kind of hold our beer in terms of how we imploded with them, giving up the equalizer, and then just literally score an own goal that is going to go down as one of the worst own goal I've ever seen on a soccer game." So yeah, they definitely wants to amend that by coming into this game. Whereas the Timbers, they can't wait for league play to get back into full action, is because they definitely show some promise in the Leagues Cup. There is definitely some promise that they can stand against some of the best team in the region. I mean, they probably have the toughest games in terms of the Leagues Cup, playing the likes of Rayados and Tigres, the two Monterrey team, and they only lost both of them by one goal, losing 1-0 to Monterrey in a game that they could have won that one if they were a little bit more clinical in terms of their finishing. But that being said, it's also been 16 days since that has happened, so fitness problem is going to be an issue coming into this one for the Timbers too, and not to mention, it's a road game for them in the Houston Heat. I mean, for Houston this season, they've been very good at home. Besides a couple of hiccups and then the massive collapse that they had against Charlotte, they look unbeatable at home this year. So this is not going to be an easy task for Giovanni Savarese team that usually around this time of the period they do come good and make a run to the playoffs, and we'll see whether that is going to be the case where Houston potentially get a win. And that, keep in mind, the Dynamo are currently just above the red line right now, so they definitely want to get themselves a win so that they can stay a little bit higher away from the red line. Though that being said, in the Western Conference, it is a log jam right now between fifth all the way down to 10th place. I think there's only like 3 points separated in terms of that. Yeah, it is very very tight, and things can easily change by the time the end of the week. This match week is going to be over. But that being said, I am now going to switch boards and look at the last 5 games to finish off the match week of the MLS season resuming after a month break for the Leagues Cup tournament. So while I was changing the board, I did check to see which match week this week is because it's been a month since the MLS regular season happened. I kind of lost track of what week was the last time when we had the last MLS match week before we went on this month long break for the Leagues Cup tournament, and I can confirm it is match week number 27. But moving on to the next one, we got St. Louis versus Austin FC. So this is an interesting one because this is a matchup that St. Louis fan will always remember because Austin is the first opponent that they, of course, face. And they definitely will remember that game of being one of the few MLS expansion team to win their first ever game. In fact, as I mentioned, they are the first team to win their inaugural game in their expansion season since LAFC did it back in 2018. And ever since that, just like LAFC had an incredible first season, the same goes for St. Louis. Still at the top of the Western Conference, 13-8, while Austin 9-5-9. Although, obviously, for both of these teams, there are also two teams that are desperately hoping they can get back to league play because, yeah, the Leagues Cup tournament, it was nothing but a disaster for both of these teams. This game, of course, is on FS1 at 9:30 p.m. Eastern, 6:30 p.m. Pacific. And in terms of the all-time meeting, obviously St. Louis had the upper edge, winning that earlier meeting 3-2 against Austin. But in terms of the last game that is played, again, both of these teams, it was a disastrous campaign in the Leagues Cup in the group stage. St. Louis was actually the first team to be officially eliminated from the Leagues Cup with a 4-0 loss to Club America, and that was back in July 27. So they have gone, 23 days since that day has happened. And for Austin, they lost 3-1 to Juarez that confirmed their elimination, and that's also been almost 3 weeks since or actually not even 3 weeks, but more than 3 weeks since that has happened. So again, this is another game where you could see between two teams that haven't played games in a very long time. Fitness issue could be an issue, but for sure that both of these teams are going to be hungry to try to make amends. Because if there's one way to make amends for that poor Leagues Cup showing for both of these teams, especially for Austin FC because of how embarrassing that they lost in this Leagues Cup tournament. In fact, I would also maybe think about making a video talk about some of the most impressive team and some of the most disappointing team in the Leagues Cup, probably right after when the Leagues Cup tournament wraps up. But don't be surprised Austin is going to be on my list in terms of that, especially with such an easy group that they had and they just pretty much choked it away. So yeah, it should be an interesting game to see how this will turn out. Moving on, we got the Galaxy versus RSL. So the Galaxy 5-7-10, while RSL 10-7-7. And as I mentioned, there's a lot of West Coast game. There's going to be four that is going to be happening, and four that starts at 10:30 p.m. Eastern, 7:30 p.m. Pacific. And again, it's not ideal because you usually don't like to see these so many of these games taking place that late in the evening, especially if you're living in the East Coast. But in terms of the all-time meeting, 24-13 and 20 in favor of RSL. Though in terms of these West Coast games, at least most of these West Coast games are featuring teams only in the Western Conference. That is until you get to this one, which, yeah, sorry, Atlanta fans. I mean, that has to be brutal for them to have to stay all the way up to 10:30 p.m. Eastern their time on a Sunday to watch their team play. But we'll get to that in just a bit. But as I said, all-time meeting, the Galaxy have a 24-13 and 20 advantage over RSL. But the last game that is played, obviously, this is where we may see an advantage in terms of the last game that is played because the Galaxy, it's been a while since their last game has played. July 30th was the last game that has played, so almost 3 weeks. While for RSL, they of course played their last game on August 8th, and it was not a memorable one. They lost 4-0 to LAFC, whereas the Galaxy also are one of these teams that, again, they cannot wait until they get themselves back into league play because they also were one of those teams that they didn't choke as bad as we've seen other teams have done in terms of choking a lead, but they kind of did that against Vancouver, 1-0 up. Looked like they were on their way of making it to the next round, only to see 2 goals in 10 minutes and just crash out of the Leagues Cup tournament. So yeah, should be interesting to see how this is going to go again. Both of these teams have something to prove after not. I mean, for RSL, it was a decent kind of tournament for them, but you just also kind of feel like they could have gone much further. And the same goes for the Galaxy, an unexpected and after blowing that 1-0 lead against Vancouver. Then we move on to the next one, and that is LAFC versus the Colorado Rapids. Now, of all the games we're going to talk about, I think this one maybe is one that you could say is kind of one-sided. Now, I will also say that, in MLS, we have seen some crazy things that has happened, and this is why I don't say a certain team has a guaranteed win, because every time I said that, I have to apologize to the team I said that's guaranteed win, and they'd end up losing. So I'm not going to say LAFC is going to guarantee to get this win against Colorado. But that being said, it is a highly chance that they can win this. 10-7-6 is LAFC record, especially with the way that LAFC is starting to figure things out in the Leeds Cup tournament. And again, they probably could have gone further if they didn't once again choke in a big game too. But Colorado 3-10-10. Again, this is them along with TFC are probably in see you next season mode. But all-time meeting 5-1-3 in favor of LAFC, and the last game that is played again. This is also where the advantage is going to go with LAFC. I mean, it's only been 9 days since they lost to Monterey, and again, they definitely wants to get back into league play and make amends of that. Especially they choked a 2-0 lead, and then for Colorado, it's been about 3 weeks since they lost 4-1 to Toluca in a Leeds Cup tournament that they didn't really do much and didn't really have too much chances in the first place too. So yeah, again the advantage are stacked in favor of LAFC. But like I said, this is why I don't say it's a guarantee win, because we've seen some crazy things that has happened in this tournament. And for Colorado, I think the only way they can win this is that maybe we'll have some MLS after dark kind of unexplained kind of reason is why one team that surely looked like they're gonna win the game and are heavy favorites and then cause an upset. In fact, I think if Colorado does win this one, this would definitely gonna go down as the biggest upset, especially of how Colorado is already a team that is thinking about next season. Whereas for LAFC, they're trying to get hot, trying to get themselves being the team to beat in the Western Conference again. Then we move on to the next one, and this is Seattle versus Atlanta United. So I mean, I talk about teams that desperately wants to come back in terms of winning games after a long layoff. That's kind of the case for both of these teams too. Though I would say that if there is a desperation derby for this week, this is exactly that one. I mean, both of these teams are desperate in terms of getting wins for different reasons. I mean, for Seattle. They desperately need to get a win because they didn't really have a good showing in the Leeds Cup. Well, actually, I wouldn't say different reason, but for the same reason with both of these teams having poor showing in the Leeds Cup tournament. But also, both of these teams are trying to hang on to where they are in the standings. I mean, Seattle, yes, they're in fourth place, but let's be honest, they are playing so poorly even before the Leeds Cup tournament begin. This team is really dropping, and if it wasn't for the good start they had in the beginning of the season, this team would have been fighting for their playoff life. Whereas for Atlanta, again, inconsistency has been a huge problem for this team with a 9-8-7 record. All-time meeting 1-3-1 is the record, so there's been draws 3 out of the 5 times that both of these teams play. And in terms of the last game that is played, again, it's been a bit of a layoff for both of these teams. July 30th was the last time Seattle play, and they lost 4-2 to Monterey. Whereas for Atlanta United, in that winner-take-all game to make it to the playoffs against Cruz Azul, they were on the wrong end of it, losing 5-4 in the PK shootout, and they also haven't played in over 3 weeks now. So yeah, again, it's in a game where both of these teams doesn't have a lot of fitness and trying to get back to the competitive edge. I mean, it's gonna be tough for both of these teams to try to get a win in this desperation derby. But you got to say that they have to. I mean, this stretch heading into the latter part of the season, I feel like one of these teams are not going to make it to the playoffs, and whoever doesn't make it to the playoffs, we could see some changes that could happen. Well, not necessarily for Seattle. I think Brian Schmetzer is going to be there, but there could be some changes in terms of the teams, and obviously for Atlanta United, they'll definitely think about changing the not only the players in their team, but maybe even the front office and coaching, because of Gonzalo Pineda and Carlos Bocanegra. Both of them are just on really hot seat, and that I think they're probably a little fortunate the fact that they're still at a job right now, considering I really thought that there could be a chance where we could see both Bocanegra and Gonzalo Pineda maybe get fired because of a poor Leeds Cup showing, similar to what we saw in the MLS's back tournament when Frank de Boer was fired after just a poor showing in terms of the MLS's back tournament. Then we go to the final game, which is Vancouver versus the San Jose Earthquakes. So the Whitecaps 8-7-7, while the Quakes 8-8-7. And also, I would like to say this is the third wheel derby, probably the most underrated derby in MLS. And no, this is not because I'm biased because of supporting that the Quakes in Vancouver are unfortunately has the undubious honor of becoming the third wheel of a major rivalry in their region. But that being said, in terms of the all-time meeting, 11, 12, and 10 in favor of the Whitecaps. But recently, the Quakes has had the better of the Whitecaps too. I mean, I think it's been a while since the Quakes lost to the Whitecaps on the road. In fact, the last time I think they lost on the road against the Whitecaps was that COVID shortened season, and they weren't even playing at BC Place. They were playing at Providence Park, which I mean, if there is a way for the Quakes to lose to a team that is not named the Portland Timbers at Providence Park, I mean, it's probably the Vancouver Whitecaps when there. I mean, that stadium, I swear, it's not only a stadium that the Quakes are just simply cursed, where they're not allowed to beat the Portland Timbers, but it was kind of hilarious the fact that even when they're not playing the team that's called the Portland Timbers, playing against the Vancouver Whitecaps at Providence Park, and yet they still lost that one, and that just kind of makes me believe that Providence Park is cursed, no matter who the Quakes are playing. Heck, you can have the Quakes playing against the worst team in the league at Providence Park, and they probably would have lost that one too. But all kidding aside, going back to this game, for the Whitecaps, they're going to be kind of a more fresher side. I mean, August 4th was the last time that they played, though, saying that it's been 16 days that has happened, and it was against Tigres. In fact, both of these teams lost too to Tigres to get eliminated in the Leeds Cup tournament. Vancouver lose to Tigres in the PK shootout, where the Quakes lost to Tigres in the final group stage game to get eliminated. And yeah, July 30th is the last time they played. They've gone 3 weeks without playing a single game. So again, another game where rust could be an issue. I mean, maybe the Whitecaps does have a slight edge with them having been away from competitive action as long as the Quakes has had. But either way, I expect this should be an entertaining third wheel derby. I mean, these third wheel derby, say what you say about it. There has been some entertaining games. I mean, the last one at BC Place was really entertaining. I mean, I remember that was the game. As a Quakes fan, that was a very frustrating game because the fact that the Quakes were up 3 times in that game. They took the lead 3 times in that one, and all 3 times they failed to kick the lead, and it ended a free draw. Though, if you're a new True. That must be one heck of a game, and we'll see whether that is the same case in this third wheel derby. But that being said, that is pretty much it in terms of looking at these 11 games. And as always, let me know in the comments below, what do you think of these 11 games, as MLS is finally back for the first time in over a month. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button, and let me know in the comments below your prediction for these 11 games. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.